Hi, welcome to the hairstyle. Watch this video while you're actually doing the hairstyle because it's long and detailed. So you start with the hair split in half down the middle. Make sure you use the nose as your guide. On the first half, we're gonna outline our heart. So you're basically making the shape of an M, a lowercase m with the point in the middle of this section. Outline that in braid gel to clean up your parts and then split that in half. Split it right at the peak of the heart and section off one part of it. Now make a diagonal line from the corner of the heart and split the length of that heart in half. I'm going to try to use circles and different emojis and stuff to kind of show what I'm talking about. Line it with braid gel and then clean it up. And then I just outline the whole entire section with braid gel and smooth it perfectly into the hair so that the braid can look as neat as possible. So let's start braiding our heart. So separate out a small, tiny little section of hair and then plait that 2 times. And as you start the third plait, this is when you'll start to add hair to it to start the cornrow. So I'm doing the stitch method where you use the rat tail comb to do that. So I'm gonna link my video where I show you how to do this. So if you're not familiar with this process, you can go and watch that video. It's pretty short, I think it's like a minute. And it will show you how to go from a plait to a cornrow using this method. So review that. It's closer and it'll show you better how to do that. But basically that's what we're going to do all the way around this first little part of the heart. As you get to the corner of the heart, you will change your position and rotate yourself behind the person whose hair you're braiding. Okay, notice before you were kind of in front of them, but now you're behind because you're trying to follow the bend of the heart. The whole time you braid, you want to keep a tight grip. Obviously, you don't want to braid too tight where you're pulling the scalp, but you don't want to let the hair become loose. So you want to keep a tight grip and keep your fingers close together as you're braiding. I am going to braid the end of this part out just to keep it secure so it doesn't come loose, but we're going to end up unbraiding that to join it with the other part of the heart later. All right, so it's all about symmetry. You want to make your diagonal line on this side similar to the initial diagonal line on the right side. If you're looking at the screen, make sure it lines up and matches next to that, okay? So section out your small, tiny little piece of hair to start your braid off. Anytime you start a braid, start off with a tiny little piece of hair like this, plait it a couple times, and then start to join the hair. It just makes the braid look neater, and it starts off at a point versus like flat and square. So start off with your point, plait it 2 or 3 times, like I said. Typically 2 times you want to plait it, and then on the 3rd time is when you start to join the hair with it. You can kind of see better a little bit how I'm stitching. So I just take the rat tail comb and I make a straight line through all the way, and I pull it all the way through the end of the hair to make sure it's fully separated. And then you split that in half between the pieces that you're braiding and continue that process. So diagonal line, grab the hair and pull the rat tail all the way through. Split that hair between the pieces that you're braiding and continue. The more you practice this, the better you'll get. It took me a while to get this, so don't get frustrated, just keep going. So now you'll see that we're coming around the bend of the heart again, and you kind of like turn your hands and your body with it. So you go from standing in front or on the side of the person to now behind them so that you can kind of curve it around and shape the heart how you want it to be shaped. For this part of the heart, I stopped doing the stitch method. You can continue if you want to. If you use braid gel and you use a good amount and you really smooth it into the hair tends to stitch itself. But I think that's also something that you have to get used to as well. So you can choose to continue stitching or just finish this part out however you choose. So I'm going to unbraid this tail until I get to the base of the heart. That way I can join these two pieces together to make one braid. And from here, you just incorporate it piece by piece. Don't just put it all in one big chunk because then it'll be really fat. So just take the hair bit by bit and join it piece by piece. So again, symmetry, we're going to copy that on the other side, and you just start by outlining your M and make sure again that the peak splits that section in half. That way your heart can be centered on that half of the head. Okay, so just outline a nice M and just make sure it lines up with the heart next to it. I like to pull the hair because when you braid it, it'll kind of pull it taut like that. So I like to pull it to see better if the hair is matching up with the adjacent side or not. She is trying to watch Bluey and I am trying to see what I'm doing. Girl, turn your head. All right, so we have our golden arches. It looks like a nice little M and it lines up with the heart next to it. We're going to outline this with braid gel, of course, and clean the part up. So we added our braid gel, we smoothed it into the hair, and we cleaned our part. And now we're ready to split this in half right at the peak of that heart, straight down the middle. Bum bum, section off one part of that, but of course you're gonna braid gel that part, go over that part to make it nice and clean, and then twist off a part and put it away. So now I'm trying to match up the peak of this heart so that the peak of my new heart is at the same spot. Okay, that way they can look very symmetrical. Y'all will notice how slow I move and how slow I braid. And this is why these hairstyles take me 3 to 5 hours, because I'm so slow. Okay, make your diagonal part, making sure it matches up with the other side, and just clean it up as needed. All right, so we're gonna stand off to the side of the client and section out a tiny little piece of hair at the peak of that heart and braid it 2 times. On the 3rd time, start joining hair like we've been doing. Same thing. So again, we're coming around the bend of the heart. So we're going to change our position and start to switch behind the client and just kind of follow that curve around to make the shape of our heart. Make sure you're looking even, and then we are going to finish the last part of our heart. So match up your diagonal line with the line next to it. That way it looks even and symmetric. So section out your tiny little piece, plait it 2 times, and on the 3rd time, start to stitch your hair together. Switch your position to stand behind your client to finish out your heart, and then unbraid the bottom part of the right side of the heart so that you can join the 2 pieces together. Woohoo! All done with this part. Yay! All right, so now we are going to start on the right side of the front. This part will be our ponytail. So we're going to start at the ear and separate this section in half straight across. Make sure the sections are even. Of course, we're going to outline our part with braid gel to clean it up and to help the hair look better when we braid it, look neater. So next we're going to make a half circle on one part of this section like you see me doing here. I'm just going to outline a small little half circle, very small, because this is going to be the center of the ponytail. This is going to be where all of your braids meet, basically. Okay, so make this as small as possible. That way when you braid this, it doesn't show through when you have your braided ponytail. Okay, so just a super small half circle, and then we're going to finish the circle by making a half circle on the other half in front of it that will connect. Okay, and it will ultimately be one nice small circle like you see me doing here, connecting the circle. You're going to outline that with braid gel and get it nice and smooth into the hair. And then we are going to plait this all the way out to the end because that is going to stay there. It's going to be the center of our ponytail, and we can start braiding from there. So section this part off so we can get it out the way, and then we're going to start braiding the bottom part. Start your first braid at the corner of your heart. You'll see where I end up. Bum, bum. There we go. Get all that hair out your way. Section it off. Use your braid gel to clean up your part. And make sure you put some in the hair so that your braids will be nice and stitched. So again, we're going to start at the very tip point so that our braid can start off looking nice and not squared off. Okay, so you're going to section out a little tiny piece of that, plait it 2 times. And then on the 3rd plait, start to stitch your braid. At this point in the video, we ain't doing nothing new, y'all. Y'all should know how to do this by now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that's the goal. But it's more of the same. So I'm just speeding through this part. I am going to show most of the parting for the braids, but I'm going to speed through most of the actual braiding because this video is already long enough. So for the next braid, you are going to part it down to the outside of the peak of that heart. The peak is like the middle part where it goes down into that little peak. we're going to part this one outside that peak. Okay, so it's going to start skinny at the top towards where the ponytail is headed. And then towards the heart part, it's going to get a little wider. So it's kind of like a skinny little triangle shape. I hope you know the drill by now. Clean it up with your braid gel. Add your braid gel all around that hair. Smooth it in there. And then from here, we're just going to braid like normal, like we've been doing. So I am just going to let the music ride and let y'all watch and follow along. Okay, so I ended up not showing the other half of this side, but once you get to the other side of the head, you will see what this side looks like. And I'll post a picture so you can see how the braids are supposed to look. But basically, they all come to that braid, that central braid that we did that makes the middle of our ponytail. They all come to that point. Okay, so finally we are gonna do the front. So split this part in thirds, okay, not half but thirds, and then you're gonna further split that part in half. This is gonna be where our X braid goes. I'll drop a picture so you can see. I'm sorry for the audio right now because I'm on a plane. I have been so busy trying to put this together, but bear with me. Sorry. Tie off this part and put it away because we're gonna start with the X braid first, okay? So make a diagonal part right here and section off that piece of hair, and that's going to be the bang like you see here in the picture. Okay, so line it with braid gel, smooth it into the hair, and then clean the part up like we've been doing. Part this section straight down the middle, and then again we're going to line this with braid gel and smooth that in all around each section. I am leaving out her God-given baby hair, okay, the hairs that are too fine and too thin to braid. I don't want to snatch her scalp back, okay, so I'm gonna leave these out so she don't be walking around looking like her braids are sewn onto her scalp. You can choose to braid it if you want, but I don't want to braid thin baby hair. Okay, so now we're going to split each of these sections in half this way. Okay, this way we can delineate where our X will cross over. And then you're going to section off opposite sides of this part here. Okay, so I'm going to section off the front piece of this one and then the back piece of the other one, because this is where the X is going to cross over. It's going to connect to these two pieces and cross over that way. All right. Okay, so we're ready to start our first braid. As always, you section off a tiny little piece and start plaiting for 2 full plaits, and then on the 3rd plait, that's when you start to stitch. And from here, everything should be like it has been the entire time. So I'm gonna let y'all just watch until I get to the point where I'm gonna cross over. Okay, so I'm ready to cross over now. I'm gonna section off a tiny little piece of that half there and start to join that with my other side. And then from there you just keep stitching and adding as you're going across this X. We're starting off the other part of the X, okay, and you section off your small piece, do your 2 plaits. On the 3rd plait, you start to stitch and braid this part back until we get to the point where we cross over. Okay, so we're about to cross over, so I'm just going to grab some of that hair and add it to what I've been braiding. I did not stitch this side, I just grabbed hair and added it as I was braiding. You can choose to stitch if you want, but that's what I chose to do. And just braid that all the way out to the end. Okay, so I didn't show all of this, but from here you should have 4 more braids, depending on the size of the child's head. Could be less, could be more, but basically the rest of the front part is just going to be braids going up to the ponytail. Okay, so you just make sure you have your parts nice and equal and braid the hair towards the center of the ponytail. Okay, so now we're going to braid down the bang piece, which I'll show you for reference, that piece right there. We're going to braid that towards the front of the head. I started it off with my tiny section that I plaited twice, and on the 3rd plait I started to stitch that part down towards the front of her head. Braid that all the way out to the end. So right now I've been working on the back of the other side, and I'm finishing up the side that I didn't show you on her right side. Okay, so these braids are going to start to make their way up the middle of the back of her head, as you can see. Okay, so you can maybe skip to this part if you already didn't as you're braiding. That way you can see this and work on this while you're doing the other side, the right side, that we didn't see. As you can see, I braid extremely slow, but this is the best way for me to not hurt them when I'm braiding their hair, because if I braid fast I start to pull and snatch and it hurts them. So I'm braiding very slow, but it's good because you get to see kind of my hand movements and how I'm doing my braids if you care to learn my technique. So just take note to where the base of each braid is starting in relation to the heart. That way you can get an idea for how to part each braid off. And just remember that each braid is going toward the center of the ponytail. That braid, that central braid or plait that we did initially, it's going towards that. And don't forget, obviously, obviously everything we did on the right side, you mirror and mimic on the left side. Everything should be symmetric, okay? So at this point where I am right now, we have 2 more braids in the back. Okay, one small one up at the top and the one that I'm working on now. You always want to make sure that you start your braid off next to the braid that is next to it. That way everything can look symmetric and it matches up perfectly. So now we're working on the X on the other side. It's very similar to the right side that we did initially. You split this side of the head into thirds, and then you split the X part in half, and then you split it in half again horizontally. Okay, for reference, you can rewind this and watch how we did it on the other side. For the sake of time, I'm not showing every single thing that is symmetric. Basically, if we did it on the right side, I don't want to show it again on the left side, just for the sake of time. This video is already very long and you're probably already very bored. Sorry. So very similar in terms of crossing over that X to the opposite side, braid it all the way out to the end, and then we're going to work on the other part of this DNA double helix. Okay, so I didn't show the rest, but this is the X looks like up close. And again, you have about 4 braids depending on the size of the head on the other side. You can reference the right side if you need to. You can bun the ponytails or let them dangle and put beads on them. Otherwise, you put beads on everything that is dangling. So the 2 in the front and the 2 in the back. Foam it so that you can set your braids and help them to not frizz. I'm using my very own D Cosmetics foam, and I like to dry that to speed up the process and to help stiffen the braids a little further so they last long. And I'm going to lay her edges using our edge tamer, and here is what it should look like. I've been posting pictures throughout, so again, you can reference everything as you're going through this. Please comment and let me know if there's anything you would like for me to do differently, explain differently, if this was helpful how I did it. I know I kind of skipped some parts just because we had did it on the previous side, so just let me know in the comments your thoughts of how this went. Thank you so much. Bye.